So I am Tushar. I am a ST2 in Amazon, and I'll be an instructor for this set of series of classes slash courses for next few months. And today we will be working on some questions related to sorting and searching. Like before we move forward, I'd like to spend a couple of minutes on the High Counselor program. I think if you guys are looking out for a change or in the middle of job search, this is a perfect place to be. Like I think they have got tons and tons of resources, which I think are unparalleled at this point in time, and they have like huge network of working professionals. So like you'll get help getting study material, even getting online coaching, as well as resume building. So I think this is a really nice place to be at this point in time, and I think they have got some really nice courses which you can browse. Just go to this link, and I think the best part is the ISP where you don't have to pay anything upfront, and you do get a discount if you use the coupon Tushar TUSHAR. So yeah, I think you'll get a coupon of around $500 off on your payments if you use this coupon. So feel free to use this coupon and just have a look at the High Counselor website. It's going to be really informative for you guys. Yeah, I think yeah. So we'll start with sorting today. So I think I'll quickly tell you what to expect in this class and like what's the agenda. So like agenda is simple. We'll be solving a few coding problems primarily based upon sorting, but the whole intention is how would we deal with such problems in a coding interview. I keep on emphasizing on this fact that it's not really important that your first solution is sort of like the best solution. Like it's perfectly fine to iteratively move forward. And that's what I always emphasize on, because what usually happens is we see an unknown question and suddenly we feel, hey, I don't know the most optimal solution to it. And I always say, if you guys don't have any idea what the problem is, just follow words in the problem and just do a brute force. Just start with something, and then the important part is how quickly are you able to move towards a proper solution from where you started. And always remember, interviewer is just there to help you out, guys. Like you will be provided with some cues, and it's like up to you to figure out, like move in the correct direction using those cues. So yeah, I think the I won't be spending much time on giving you a describing all the sorting algorithms. I think that you guys might be fully aware of, or if not, you can quickly go through these once these classes are over. But what I would want from you guys is this is a really cool site that I usually use. It has some it has basically combined all the sorting algorithms uh, and basically show what's the complexities are and stuff like that. And I think this is something you should be aware of. Maybe having a last minute revision sort of thing, just in case, because I think these are very trivial things. If you have to make any decision, which sort to use at what time, what are pros and cons, you need to be aware of the space and time complexities. So yeah, I think just make this exam cheat sheet or whatever way you want to store this. But yeah, this is a really good resource. So yeah, I think we'll be starting with our first problem today. Yeah, I think the first problem that we're going to work today is, I think, just 1 second. Yeah. So the problem will go something like this. I'll just write the problem statement, make you understand what it means. Maybe for 30 seconds, you guys, or 1 minute, you guys just think about it, and then I'll start with how we could start with multiple solutions. And if you have any questions, free feel to write it on chat. I'll be happy to respond to them. Okay. So I think the first question is something like this. Let's say you are given a sorted array: 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 5, 6, 7, 8. You have to find out, and this is going to be the input, this is going to be the array, and second input would be the number, which is the target, which let's say it is 8. And what output we expect is the index in the array, which basically has this particular target. Like in this case, we only have 8 at the last index. So output would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 10 because it's a zero-based indexing. Had the target, it will be 10, 10 because it's starting from 10 and ending at 10. Had it been 5, the output would have been something like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 because 5 starts at 5th index and we have it till 7th index. So basically we have to find out the range. We have to find out the range in which this target number is present in this sorted array. The most important part is this array is sorted. So yeah, I think just think it about for like maybe a minute or so. Yeah. So yeah, I think I'll start with what an ideal solution could look like. And I think if we look at this problem, like the part about these problems is these problems look like pretty straightforward. That hey, it's just asking me, just give me the like I can directly just traverse the array and figure out hey when this array is starting and when this target is ending, and I just return those, which is a good, which is a fairly like acceptable first solution. Like you can just iterate through the array. Like that iteration would like something look like fairly simple. Uh, it would look something like this. So yeah, I think we'll just update the start index with I, and what we're going to do is post this. We are going to reiterate once from start index till end with the condition that if ARR of I, if ARR of I equal to target if is something like this, like and we can say hey, this is the start index, this we can have an end index also. Let's say we'll just update the value of end index to target to I. If I is if area of I is not equal to target, we just break it. And what we do at the end, we return we just return a pair of start index and end index. In case we don't have start index or end index, this will return -1, comma -1. This is like the most basic solution, right? I think for any basic solution, you should be able to write the code pretty fast. Like this is just the most iterative solution, and you can write this code in way easier ways also. I think the trickier part comes now that just think it like queues. Whenever you see a sorted array and you have to search something, I think the first thing that should come to your mind is binary search. Like, how can I use binary search? And because what binary search does is it utilizes sorting and helps us figure out a particular target value. So if we now let's try to see, is there a way via sorting we can do this? Like if this question was simply find out if 8 is present or if 5 is present or not, we would have used binary search. And in log of n, we would have figured that out. Hey, 5 is present or not. But now what we have to do is we have to find out the complete range in which 5 is present. So is there a way we can use binary search here? So I think, yeah, using that approach in mind, that we can use binary search somehow. We'll try to code another approach. Just re-asking, you guys are able to see my screen, correct? Okay, can anyone of you respond on the chat? Like if you can see the Google Doc? Oh, yeah, cool. So yeah, so in case of, let's look at how would a binary. Yes, I think that's perfect. That's the kind of approach we expected. I think that's pretty good, and I think we're going to do something like that only. And I think the first thing, what the solution that Bhavya has mentioned, that we can find the first and last occurrence of this, but of this particular string using binary search. And because we know binary searching works in log of n, we can actually change the complexity, which was here initially O of n. Yeah, I think complexities are really important here, of O of n to log of n using binary search. Yeah, I think, but before we go to that approach, I would want you guys to think about another one, like moving from linear search to actually the most optimal solution. There is an intermediate stage in between, which I want you guys to think about. What if we could have used uh, binary search to find out the first occurrence, any occurrence in a string in this array? Like we use binary search and say if 8 is present or not. And then what we do a bidirectional search. So what bidirectional search does basically is, let's say I'll take the same example. Yeah, so this is the example, and I say, hey, I see if 5 is, check if 5 is present or not. And say if present, search to the left and right of it and find out the start and end range, which is something very simple. We use binary search once and then iterate the array from that index. But there is an issue with that approach. Like it tends to look as, hey, we are doing that in ON and then we're just moving left and right. Can anyone of guess what is the issue with that approach? Like why is that approach not the most optimal one? Like you can write in chat if anyone wants. So okay, I'm talking about something like this. We found out, hey, 5 is present. So let's say 5, we found 5 at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 index. 7 index, we found out 5 using binary search. And then we traversed, hey, we checked 6, 5, 4 index. We checked 6th index, which was a 5. We checked 4th, 5th index, which is not a 5. So we know the starting index is 6. And then we move towards right and figure out, hey, 8th index is also 6. But the issue in this case is it works here for this sort of array, but what happens if all the elements are 5 in this array?
Then in the binary search, it would just search the first 5 and it would loop over the rest of elements again. So the complexity would be order of n.
Correct. And we'll again end up adding being towards order of n. The issue with, so as a candidate, you need to be like aware of all what happens in these cases, because in what happens is, let's say if you've not seen this problem before, or you're looking into a new problem and you see your basic approach works for this array and you say, hey, this is the perfect solution. But I think as a candidate, you have to look into all the edge cases. What happens? So this is a generic information in terms of BSTs also. Like if you do any sort of searching, then you have to check, hey, if is the tree becoming skewed or not. Same is the case with this. Like you have to ensure that, hey, is this complete array let's say if all the values are same, is it becoming linear or not? Yeah. So I think we'll try to, I'll just quickly write the code for binary search here, and I just add a pseudocode so that yeah, others have an idea of, whoever views this video has an idea of how we do this, and then we'll move on to the most optimal solution pretty quickly. So yeah, I think I'll just quickly, or maybe not. I'll implement the optimal solution once. Yeah. So I think, as Bhavya also mentioned, we can do better than this solution, because the worst case of this solution becomes log of n. So what we can do is, via binary search, find out the first index, and then via binary search, find out the last index. And I think these two algorithms are really important for lot of coding problems. Like binary search, and like there are few variations out where you have to find out the first element, where you have to find out last element, and maybe stuff like that. So yeah, I'll quickly try to say, so we'll create a couple of functions. So I think the first function that we have to create is find first occurrence, and these will be helper functions. The input to this will be a vector, let's say, which will be an array, and we will have a target. Okay. And I think the first thing that we can do is, where our arrays, the basic binary search, where we have a start pointer, we have an end pointer, which is nothing but the size of an array. Yes, and then we have something like, well, start is less than equal to end. We calculate the middle element, which is equal to start plus end. Usually this approach sometimes creates overflow also. So like we need to subtract first and then add. But yeah, I'll keep it like this. And then what we do is, so I think these now is a very trivial part which we have to take care of. So we will say, yeah. So let's see. Now the question comes: how do we calculate what's the first occurrence? So I'll start with, how do we do a binary search? So we do a very simple binary search, saying, hey, if ARR of mid is equal to ARR of is equal to target, return width. This is what we usually do in a binary search. And else, and what we say, else if ARR of width is less than equal to target, that means target is somewhere to the right of it, because middle element is something, let's say this is the array, sorted array, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8, and let's say the middle element is 6, target is 7. So you know all the elements to the left of 6 are of no use. So what you do is, you say, hey, I'll update my start to mid plus 1. And the third case will be where, okay, I'll move this to the next page. Yeah. The third part is where end is equal to mid minus 1. And this is the case where I'll again write 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8. Let's say your mid element is 5 and the target is 3. So you know all the elements to the right of 5 are of no use, because they are obviously going to be more than 5. And this would perfectly work in case of if we have to find out whether whether the element exists or not. But the issue is, now we have to find out the first occurrence. So what we're going to do is, whenever we see that we found out a target, we won't return at that point in time. What we're going to do is, we are going to keep a variable that says, hey, first occurrence. We're going to update that first occurrence with mid. Now just think about this. Imagine something like 1 2 2 2 2 3 4 5 6. Let's say the first mid was this last 2. Now what we know is, we have updated the first occurrence with this mid, but what we don't know is, there could be same value to the left of it somewhere. We don't know whether it will be there or not. If it's not there, we won't update first occurrence, but if it is there, we should ideally update the first occurrence. What we'll say is, we have updated the first occurrence, but what we'll say again is we'll trim the end pointer to mid minus 1. Why? Because let's look at the same case here again. I found out the last two. Now I need to keep my end pointer to the left of it so that in this subarray, which is 1, 2, 2, I can find out the first occurrence. And at the end, what I do, I just return the first occurrence. Yes. So let's say if this number does not exist, first occurrence will be minus 1. I think similarly, we can write a code pretty quickly for the last occurrence also. Okay, so I think now the question comes, what is different in last occurrence? Last occurrence, everything is pretty much similar. I'll just change this variable name so that we are very clear what we're doing. When we meet a target, previously what we knew, if there is an element to the left of it, we should update the first occurrence. Now let's say if the mid is the middle element here, which is 2, middle was 2, I need to ensure that last occurrence value is updated by the 2 which is to the right of it, if there is such. So what I'm going to do is, instead of updating the end this time, I'm saying, hey, let's look to the right of this array and see if there is another 2. So what I'll do is I'll say, hey, start is equal to mid plus 1. And with this, I'll get the last occurrence. And I think the whole code would be something pretty similar what we did here. So this is what we required. And what we're going to do is we can say first occurrence is equal to, we'll call this function our target. We'll say last occurrence, and then what we'll return this first occurrence comma last occurrence. So this just creates array with these two values. So yeah, I think so this is what's expected in an interview. Like as I again said, it's okay if you're not getting the first solution in the first attempt, but how you iteratively move and figure out the final solution and how quickly you are able to implement that. Now there are 2 points to it. Like whenever someone is interviewing, the whole purpose is to figure out the data points so that they can say, hey, you're good at coding, you're good at figuring out the data structure algorithms. And one of the most important part there comes after figuring out algorithm is how quickly you are able to write the code. And I think that's what I think you need to have a clarity in mind, that what code you are writing so that you are able to write the code in time. So these are the 2 most important things. And just be while you are solving the problem, be verbose. Like it's okay to tell whatever is coming in your mind, because what happens is sometimes, let's say if you are moving a bit away towards the away from the problem, an interview has no idea because you are not sharing anything with them. So always be aware that, hey, this is what I'm thinking. And if you are going somewhere wrong, interviewer will interrupt you or just try to guide you correctly. So yeah, I think this is the first problem that we did. Yeah, I think if you have any questions, you let me know on the chat in this problem, and I will move on to the next problem. Yeah, I think we'll go to the third problem first. Yep. So I think this is like fairly straightforward problem, but I wanted to discuss this problem with you so that you have an idea of how to use a few functions. So I think the problem is very simple and straightforward. We want to sort this array, but we don't want to sort this array based upon the array values. Like ideally, sorting this array in increasing order would mean 1, 1, 2, 2, 2, 3, 4, 5. But what I want, I don't want this. What I want is you sort them based upon their increasing frequencies. That means let's figure out first what is the frequency of this. One is the frequency. Frequency is basically how many times is one repeating in this array. Frequency of this is 1 is 2, 2 is 4, 3 is 1, 4 is 1, and 5 is also 1. So ideally the output of this should be 3, 4, 5, 1, 1, 2 comma 2 1 comma 1 or 2 comma 2 comma 2 comma 2. This is going to be the output, and I'm okay with 3 4 5 being in any order. It could be 4 5 3 also, because they all have same frequency. So yeah, I think this is the problem that we are going to solve. And what I yeah, I think that's a good that's a good start. And here I want you, before we move and jump to a solution, I what I want to tell you is, what could be the questions that you ask the interviewer here? Like, if this is just a question and interviewer has not shared any more information apart from this. Yeah. But yeah, as you used hashmap, I think the way you would like to use hashmap is, you'll try to store this information in a hashmap, and then based upon this, sort this array. Is that correct?
Otherwise, I can use the frequency to the number. Like one frequency would be for 3, 4, and 5.
Yes.
And 2 frequencies for 1, 3 frequency for 2.
Got it. So basically, what you'll do is, you'll create an extra map. Let's go towards the solution of it. The solution that we are saying is, we'll create a map and store frequencies, correct? Corresponding to each number.
Yes.
And then what we're going to do, we have a couple of options. Either we sort the array using that data, using the map. And how to do this, there will be a couple of ways. But before we move to the solution, I think there should be some clarifying questions, like why did we choose a map here? The whole reason why we chose a map was because it provides a good key value support, correct? Like, corresponding to this key, this is the value. But operations in map are not O of 1 always, due to collisions. So what we can ask interviewer is there any constraint on these numbers, like what these numbers could be? And I'll tell you why that is important. That's important so that you can use the contiguous contiguous data structure, like array or a vector. Simply, let's say, if I say, just to simplify this problem more, these numbers, okay, these numbers are guaranteed will be greater than 0 always. And ARR of I will be always greater than 0. And ARR of I will be always less than 10,000. Something like this. So how would this approach change based upon the data that I have provided now? So yeah, I think how this helps is, now instead of using a map, just to make our solution better, we can use a array or a vector, basically any contiguous memory, because we know the size is 1000 only. And we can figure out the frequency. We can just update the frequency in that vector. Okay, and I think there are few ways via. So this simplifies our first step. Instead of creating a map, now we can create a vector or an array. That is, a vector is analogous to an array, something like that in C++. In Java, you'll have multiple variations of that, but the crux will be same, like a contiguous memory. In contiguous memory, it guarantees O of 1. Like in O of 1, you can figure out what is the key value pair, like corresponding to 5, what is the frequency. And I think after this, the next part is, how do you rebuild the array? The first way could be how to build the array using map or vector. We iterate through it n times and find out the find out the value with least frequency. Something like this. We iterate this map and say, hey, the least frequency is 5, and we add first element is 5. Then and we remove the. I'll just start from here. Okay, I'll go to the next page. Yeah. So this was our map. So we iterate through this map and say, hey, least frequency is 5. We insert the first element as 5 and remove this from map. Next one is we try to insert 4 and then remove it from map. Same with 3. And then when we find 2, we insert 2 twice because the frequency was 2. And then 2 4 times. The only issue with this is corresponding to each number, we end up iterating the uh, whole map or vector, which again is not the most optimal solution. It tends to go to n square in worst case. Now, how can we simplify that? The another approach that we can do is, why don't we do a custom sort? Like we already have this map now, and this map tells us the frequency in O of 1. And what if we try to sort like any sort? We just approach to says sort using any sorting algorithm. So if you look at closely to any sorting algorithm, what it will do, it will be performing some action based on which it will say whether the first element should be at the front or back, any sorting algorithm. So and what we usually do, the typical condition that we usually do is if this array of I is greater than array of j, we say, hey, do something. Be it merge sort, quick sort, we basically try to perform some action on these two arrays. Correct. Instead of now doing all the values of these two arrays, what we have to do, we have to use the map or the vector we created. So it won't be like, let's say we say this array as ARR, we build this map as MAP. So now it won't be like something like this. Array of I is greater than array of j. It would be something like map of array of I is greater than map of array of j. And this is so, and whatever sorting algorithm we use, that will be the complexity. Like if we end up on using an n-square algorithm, the complexity will be n square. If we use something like merge sort, quick sort, it again would be n square. But in terms of an interview, most of the times what happens is we usually say don't want to check if you actually can write the code. So we are okay if you use some custom library, and for that it's important for you to understand how comparators work. And that was the primary focus here. If like there could be some cases where interviewer actually wants you to implement some sorting algorithm, and I think you look at some n log n only, so that to ensure the complexity does not go to n square. Maybe a quick sort or merge sort, but yeah, I think those implementations you should always know. But a lot of time what happens is they ask you can write a custom comparator. So what custom comparator does is yep. So what custom comparator does is, let's say we have this vector with values 1, 2, 3, 4, something like, I'll keep it unsorted, 3, 4, 5, 6, something like this. 44, and which is an unsorted array. And what we can actually do is, by default, we can sort this array. And these, I'm just telling this about the C++ implementation. Similar implementations are in Java also, but maybe in almost all languages where they help us sort it. But what happens if you want to do a custom sort of this? Because let's say if you have a complicated algorithm, and in which sorting is not the only thing you are doing, there are 10 other things. You cannot go and write the quick sort or merge sort every time. So what happens? You need to write a custom algorithm just in case, let's say if you don't want increasing order or if you want to tweak something. So here what we are going to do is we are going to create a compare function that will basically take input whatever the data type of this array is, and we can tell whenever you sort this array what custom function you use to sort it. And we can say if a is less than b, return. This will sort this array in decreasing order. And what we are going to do in this case is we are going to say return map of a is less than map of b. So what this will return, considering our array is this and our I just rewrite it 1, 1, something like this. this is our vector, and our map of 1 is equal to 1, map of 2 is equal to 3, and map of 3 is equal to 2. The output after we sort this would be something like 1 comma 3 comma 3 comma 2 comma 2 comma 2, something like this. So questions like these basically test like a couple of things, like how quickly are you able to figure out what data structure to use. And like if based upon whatever language you're using, like C or Java. In C there's a trivial choice. Whenever we use a map, there is a map versus an ordered map. But these are very small things which are trivial, like let's say we cannot casually say we use a map. We need to know when to use a map and when not to use a map. Whenever we want to keep the elements in sorted order, we use a map. If we just want a better lookup, we use an unordered map. Similar is in case of sets also. If you want to keep the data in sets in sorted order, you can basically use a set, otherwise an ordered set you can use. And I think, yeah, counterparts in Java will also be there. So I think that's it about this problem. And the takeaway from this problem would be, again, like like the whole intention was, whenever you see a problem that your solution you quickly are able to figure out it looks like this. Ensure to ask correct questions. Try to see how you can optimize it, because most of time what usually happens is we say this looks clearly, we'll just iterate it once. Always look if you can do it in login, and if there is any sorting or searching involved, think about binary search. That's something you guys should be starting to think in that direction. So yeah, I think we move on towards the next problem, which is, yeah. So the this next problem comes basically sort of a tricky way where you have to figure out some patterns. So I'll tell you what the problem is. The problem basically says, let's say there is an array 2, 3, 2, 5. It says make optimal pairs. Pairs is, okay, wait, I have written this already. I'll rewrite it so that I can say again. Make optimal pairs such that, let's say I'll give an example. We make pairs between the numbers. So this the number of elements in this array is always going to be n, even number of elements in array is even. We make optimal pairs such that their maximum pair sum is maximized, which is nothing but saying let's try to make pairs of these arrays of this array. One of the pair is 2 comma 3 and second is 2 comma 5. So what we have done, we have used all the elements in this array and made two pairs from them. And what we can do is we find out the sum of these two numbers, which is 5 here and 7 in this case. And now what we need is, out of all possible combinations, let's say this is one possible combination. Second possible combination could have been 2 comma 2, 3 comma 5. The sum is 4 here, the sum is 8 here. And what we first of all find out is, we find out max of these two numbers, 5 comma 7, which is the max of all the pairs that we have created, which is equal to 7. And in this case, it is equal to 8. What our target is, we have to find out that optimal way of dividing it into pairs such that the maximized sum is minimal. Like in this case, we have 7 here, we have 8 here. Let's look at another case where we could have made 2 comma 5 and again a 2 comma 3. Okay, I should not have used 2. Let's use 1 here. Maybe it simplifies it. 2 comma 3 and 1 comma 5, which is nothing but 6. 2 comma 1 and 3 comma 5, which is nothing but 8. And then the third one would be 2 comma 5 and 3 comma 1. where the sum is max of 7 comma 4, which is equal to 7. And we know the least of these numbers 6, 7 and 8 is min of 6 comma 7 comma 8 is equal to 6. And so our output, so when the input is something like 2, 3, 2 comma 3 comma 1 comma 5, our output should be 6. And how we have calculated our output is figured out what is the most optimal pair, found out the sum of each corresponding pair, and then found out if that is minimum or not. The most important part here is just to ensure one number can be part of only one pair. It should not be like this 3 is part of this pair also and the same 3 is part of the second pair also. And problems like these, they they don't have like a straightforward solution, and I want you guys to just think about it for a minute or so before we move on to how to solve these types of problems. Yeah, I think I'll go with what could be the approach here. So I think if we look at the brute force approach, like what does this problem say? Find out all the optimal pairs. If I have to try to brute force it, in this case, there were only 3 pairs, 3 different sort of pairs possible. But when this number increases, this number of elements here increase to, let's say 50, the number of possible pairs would start increasing exponentially. And trying to build all those manually is not going to be possible for us. So what we have to try to figure out is look at few test cases, try to see if there is a pattern out there that we can use to find the solution to this problem. What we can do here is, let's look at any random problem. Let's look at first the same example that we took. If we see 6, we found out 6 minimum. And what's the most peculiar thing about this pair? We have mapped the greatest element to the smallest element. And in others, we have not done that. Can we try to see if something like this works in any other such example? Let's say 4, 5, 1, 2. If we try to build something like this. Now let's see what happens if we take the maximum at the lowest number. We'll say first pair is 5, 1, second pair is 4, 2. The total sum comes up to be 6, and here it is also 6. And maximum of both of them is again 6. Then we see, okay, which is 6. And let's look at some other use case where we say 5, 2 and 4, 1. And here we see the output final would come up to be 7. And we see, hey, I think we see a pattern saying that if we try to merge the maximum element to the next element and the second maximum to the second minimum, we could find out an efficient solution. But the thing is, interviews, we don't work on guesses. Like we cannot just guess and say this is going to happen. We have to try to like give some sort of intuition to the interviewer saying why we are thinking like this. And what usually I prefer in such cases is don't take any numbers, just take a random like constants. Just think about this. Let's say if there are two numbers A and B, which are not the minimum and maximum in an array, and these are two numbers. Okay, so what we are postulating and what we are trying to say is this: if we make a pair using, there are multiple ways we can make a pair here. If we make a pair using max comma min, second is A comma B, other pair is going to be something like this: max comma A, min comma B, or min comma A, max comma B. So what you have to try to prove is that the first part is always going to be the minimum value. And if we see, look at this, we see min plus max is going to be greater than a plus b, that we know. This is always going to be greater than a plus b. No, not always. What we know is min plus max is always going to be greater than min plus b. Why? Because we know max is greater than max is greater than b and min is common. Here, what's going to happen is we know like we always know that min plus max again is going to be less than min is common here, and a is less than max. But what happens in this case is max comma b. So even this min comma a is less than min comma max, this max comma b is always going to be greater than this. So what we end up coming at is that this value, the maximum of these two, is always going to be less than these two. Why? This value is less than this value. Why? Max is common and a is greater than min. Same happens in the case of this. Max is common and b is greater than min. So in such a way, we can say to the interviewer, hey, this is the way I have thought about, and that's why I'm able to say that if we try to merge the first and the last solution, we'll come up having an optimal solution. And like I'll try to quickly code this. Int find max pair sum. Find max pair sum, which is something like this. Vector. I'll keep ARR, and what we are going to do is I'll keep answer as int min, and then what we're going to do is we're going to first sort the array. Sorting array basically, so whenever you sort array, always remember the complexity would always be at L log. Yeah, we always consider the sorting whenever we sort using these custom comparators to be L log n, unless the input is some sort of skewed that we always know it's not going to be that. And then it's going to be a simple for loop where I'm gonna where I'm gonna say answer is equal to max of answer comma ARR of I plus ARR of array dot size minus 1 minus I. And what we do, we return answer at the end. We return answer. So yeah, I think these types of problems help us to figure out, trying to find out the patterns in the problem. And like if you look at the problem, we somehow might like, if this is a new problem, we might say, hey, how like there is no probable pattern, we can make up any pairs. But again, like always keep whenever there is some, find out maximum minimum, try to see what would happen if we just try to work with maximum element and minimum elements. And I would not suggest discussing the brute force approach much with the interviewer for this, because that's not going to be acceptable here. And the reason is there is huge difference between how brute force would work to the actual solution. Yeah. So I think, yeah, I think I would always suggest to practice more such problems, because these problems are not like huge time consuming, but a bit tricky, which is a favorite interview problem. Some because we like to trick the candidates, just to think about how they deal with something unknown when an unknown question comes. So yeah, I think we'll move towards our last problem for today. We have some time. I'll try to close. I'll try to tell them what the problem is. The problem is, again, this problem looks very simple. If you look at it, the problem simply says, find the first peak element. What's a peak element? Peak element is, imagine these numbers like mountains, like size of this is, consider this array 2, 3, 5, 1. So how would this array look like? I'll quickly write, but 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 1 second, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we have 2 here. We have 3 here. We have 5 here. And we have, let's say, 1 here. And let's say we have 2, 1 here. And let's say we have 2 again at the end. So if you look at this and assume this to be a mountain, we know 5 is one peak and another peak is 2. So what we have to find out is, given an array, find out any peak element, and there could be multiple peak elements in this particular array. And I think again, like I won't discuss much the straightforward approach, which is saying, hey, in O of n, traverse the array and find out the if any number, find out something like this. ARR of I is greater than ARR of I minus I plus 1, and ARR of I is less than ARR of I minus 1. Sorry, greater than. So I think this would be the O of n traversal, but I think as soon as you say, it might not spend much time on this, and we will try to quickly move over to the something a better solution. And again, like whenever such problem comes where we have to find out something, and just try to see how we can correlate it with sorting or binary search. And again, like if you just visualize these peaks here, these peaks are nothing but combinations of different arrays in sorted and either in sorted order or in reverse sorted order. Like any peak, if you look like it, you can just think visually like this. Say till 235, it's a sorted order. It's a sorted array. After that, 1, 2. This is again a sorted array. And in a sorted array, we already know there is a way to figure out any number, which is binary search. Correct. And we'll try to use that binary search to figure out this peak element. This peak element. Again, like we are not being asked the first peak element or something, just if a peak element exists or not. Multiple extensions to this problem where we could find out the first peak element and stuff like that. I think what we're going to do is we'll try to have few use case test cases, and from there we'll try to build how our binary search would look like. I think there would be ideally 3 cases. 3 cases. The first case would be this array is completely sorted. This array is completely sorted. What happens in this case is, let's say I find out the any element. The next element is always going to be greater than that. And if you visualize it like a mountain, the output will always be the last element, because every previous element is less than that. The second use case that we have to think of it when it is reversely sorted. What happens in this case is every next element is less than that. And if we try to figure out what is the basically peak element, we'll end up going to the first element, which is the maximum element. Imagine something like this. Had this been 6, okay, imagine had this been 5, and had this been something, say 3 again, or no, maybe 4. So like one of the peaks that we have is 5. So let's try to build a binary search solution out of this. Peak element. I'll try to explain the solution, how we think about the conditions in binary search while implementing. Yeah. So I think if we look at this problem clearly, there are just a few use cases. Let's say we want our middle element is 4. Okay, just so that we try to find out what conditions we have to use. If we are of weight, and we see, I'm looking at the first use case here. Okay, I'll just write it what use case I'm looking at. First use case. Let's say the middle element is 4, and I see the next element is greater than 4. Now, if you imagine this, this looks like a slope, something like this, a slope uh, where the array is increasing. So we know, hey, if this is the case, the peak, there will be at least one peak to the right of it. We definitely know. Just imagine yourself in front of a mountain and you can see your next number is greater than you. Like your next peak is greater than your peak. So you know the actual peak number would be somewhere to the right of it. So what we say in this case is if array of mid is less than equal is less than area of mid plus 1, we say, hey, okay, let me move this down. Uh, what we're going to say is start is equal to mid plus 1. You got it. Why? Because see, we whenever an element is greater than this number, we know we are on an increasing slope. So that number could be anywhere. The next number also somewhere to the right of it. We don't. We will find that out recursively. And then what will happen is, this is the if case, else. Let's look at the second use case. It's in the reverse order. Now 4 is greater than 3 here. Now what we know is this is a decreasing slope. What happens in decreasing slope is we know the peak could be this number or any other number to the left of it. It could be a peak. In this case, it's 7, or it could have been a use case where 4 itself could have been the peak. So what we do in this case is we say, hey, n is equal to mid, and we recursively update the values in such a way that the start will always return the final output in this case. And now what we get from here is, let's try to visualize this case in case of if there is an actual peak in between. These are, we have taken two contrasting edge cases. Let's look at something like this: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 3, 2, 1. Here we found out 4. Initially, let's say the mid is 4. We say, hey, 4 is less than 5. That means somewhere to the right of it, the rest of the array will, somewhere to the right of it, we will have a peak. So what we do, we say, hey, start is equal to, I'll write the indexes at the top so that it's easier for you guys to visualize it. 5, 6, and 7. So now start will move on to 4 index, and end is obviously at 7. But what you see at next mid, which is 2, you see at at 3. At 3 you realize, hey, 3 is greater than 2. 3 is less than greater than the next number. So you say this is part of a decreasing slope. Decreasing slope means 3 could either be a peak element or somewhere to the left of it there will be a peak element. So what you do, you update that value of 5. Now the middle element is 5. The middle element is 3 again. And now what you, the middle element is 4 again. And now what you do, you update, you find out, hey, sorry, the middle element is 4 again, and now you find out, hey, 5, this 5 number is greater than 3, and what you do, you update the value start to mid plus 1, and you stop and return, because start is less than it. In such a way, you finally got the output as 5. And this is not how this is different from a simple binary search is, this array is not completely sorted, but bitwise sorted, like partly sorted. One simple example here could be something like this: 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 3, 2, 6, 7, 8, 9, 1, 1, 2, 3. Here also this approach works. Where this approach would not work is if they ask you find out the uh, first peak, because this binary search just gives us any peak. If we read based upon the middle element we choose, it could give us the first peak, it could give us the third peak also if we choose a different middle element. So something like this. So yeah, I think again, like more or less, I don't have more problems for today. I think these are good 4 problems that we solved. The core crux I would again ask you guys to is, the first thing is just have a look at these algorithms. I think if you look at this site also, you will be able to get a short gist, I think this is a Wikipedia or even on Geeks, you can figure out what the basic algorithm is and what's the best and average case. In case you have any doubts here, I'll be open to address them in the next session. I'll set up 5-10 minutes just in case you have any doubts over these algorithms. And again, like whenever you're solving these sorting algorithms and you get anything to search for, think of binary search once. But there's no rule. Like try to like have a problem solving paradigm sort of thing where you say if this is happening, what could be the next solution? And again, I'm reiterating, move from basic solution to the next solution. There is nothing wrong in saying the most basic solution. Even how bad, even if you know like that's the worst brute force that could be possible, still it's okay to say that. So yeah, I think that's pretty much from my side for this class. Before closing this session again, like I'll give just spend 30 seconds maybe to just again like ask you guys to just have a look at this website and just try to see what could suit you and how the network and the courses as well as along the counseling sessions the High Counselor provides is going to help you in your job search. In case you have any questions on how do you prepare, you want to prepare personally on in this journey of yours to get your dream job, feel free to ping me here, message me whatever questions you have. Like if you have any specific question that you're not able to understand or any specific doubt also, I'll be more than happy to answer you guys. So yeah, feel free to write anything in the chat. Yeah, I think that's it from my side. Any questions from you guys? Okay, I think yeah, I think we can. I'll stop this. Okay. Okay, what I'll do is I'll stop the screen share. Um, maybe after all quiz, I got a reject mail. I think yeah. I'll just answer that. Just one second. I'm just sorting this.